Guilt is an important topic that we have to talk about because so many times we do not even realize what is bothering us, and men feel guilt for not being the great provider or looking weak in front of people they know. Women feel guilty because they do not do enough when it comes to their kids. The feeling of guilt about our past behavior, things that we should have done, could have done, must have done, gets to us and remains with us. Now, I had requested all of you to mention certain topics that you would like me to talk about, and so many of you mentioned guilt as a concern, so we thought let's jump in. And please keep writing on things, topics that can help you. Now, before I jump in and till the time everybody is joining in, I'm going to request all of you to share this conversation, this workshop detail with anybody you can. We really require to talk about the topics that we keep on discussing. Every day we receive messages in our DMs which are heartbreaking. It is so sad to hear the stories and experiences that people are going through. Having certain tools can genuinely help them cope up with the situation that they are in and deal with the problems at hand. So if you can help in whichever way, I believe everybody is helping, but mental wellness or the trauma that people are going through and will go through in coming times, we require methods and tools to deal with that trauma. Otherwise, once the impact is made, dealing with that impact becomes even more difficult. Right? We all know this, we all have gone through this. So it's my humble request, if you can share this information with anybody who can get benefited, please volunteer and do that. It would be of great help. So let's get to today's topic about guilt. Now, guilt is a tough topic to talk about, and being able to talk about this in a quick conversation without having the personal context is difficult. Like in general, if I had to meet you in person and look at your handwriting sample and understand exactly what is causing you guilt, it would have been much easier for me to address that guilt. But in our conversation, when I'm going to talk to all of you, I want you to observe certain aspects of guilt, how you feel it, where do you feel it. Now, when it comes to guilt, there is also one more idea that we miss. Now, guilt is based on the moral structure, the social structure. Now, back in the day, what was absolutely immoral today is kind of a norm, social norm that we look at. Imagine having a concept like Tinder much before 1970s, where people were really free and they were in the movement. I'm talking about say 1930s. That was unacceptable. It was probably unacceptable 20 years ago. But as we look at Tinder or online dating now, that option is acceptable. People are like, okay, fine. So the guilt that was caused back in the day for the same decision was very different than the guilt that is caused today. Why am I giving you this timeline kind of example? Because what can make you feel guilty might be the obviously normal thing to do for the other person. What can make them feel guilty might be the obviously normal thing for you to do. So guilt is not about what you're doing, but it is about the context. It is about the belief system. It's about the mental structure that we have and how far do we go from that structure. Now, in some cultures, in some communities, certain type of language is absolutely not acceptable. For other communities, the same language or using abusive words in their conversation is a friendly gesture, it's a loving gesture. So what can be guilty? What makes you feel guilty? It's not about what you're doing, but it's about what is your belief system, what is your context, what is the upbringing that you come from. Okay, and thereby dealing with guilt is a crucial thing. If your mother dealt with parenting in a particular manner and the way you're doing it is far different than that, and then when you make mistakes, now you suddenly feel guilty. If something that you do that goes completely devastating and you do not know how to recover from it, you feel guilty. And obviously there are moral grounds, and so many people keep going back for feeling remorse for things that they shouldn't have done or shouldn't have done in the manner that they did. Right? Now, as I'm talking about it, all of us are thinking about all the areas where we feel that sense of guilt. Now, I want you to tap into your guilt while we talk about this topic today, because if you do that, it becomes an active conversation. That means everything that I would say, you will look at that one area or maximum two areas. Don't bring in all the areas, just pick one or two so that you can start working with it. Mental constructs are such that we have to keep working on certain ideas. We pick these concepts and we kind of go to the root cause of it. And once you are at the root cause, if you can twist something, change something, alter something, the belief is gone forever. The guilt is gone forever. I cannot talk about this topic of guilt without mentioning one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown. If you do not know Brené Brown, and if you are emotionally dealing with challenging areas, you must check out her Netflix special. It's a 1-hour special where she speaks about different emotions and how to deal with it, vulnerability. She has a TED Talk, she has multiple books, and she is a fantastic woman. And one of the things that I love, because when she started, she was a researcher, and the topic was shame and thereby guilt. So she kept on talking to people about shame and guilt for over 20 years to come to certain observations which were revolutionary. And I'm saying, using the word revolutionary very carefully here, because till that point nobody looked at the gaps in your emotions as a strength. She could bring that out. She said, if you do not feel the shame or guilt, or if you don't feel vulnerable about what you're doing, you cannot have strength to genuinely stand by what you believe in and do things that you're supposed to do. Now, it is not one or the other. You're supposed to do both of these things together, because if you don't have the sensitivity to absorb and evaluate and kind of ponder about things, then you also become numb when it comes to daring and courage and doing things which can help you. So it is important that you absolutely look at these things. Somebody saying, can you mention the name of the show? I do not recollect right now, but the name of the author is Brené Brown, Brene Brown. Brené Brown. She also has a podcast, so if you guys want to really explore her work, please go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's talk about how guilt is understood. Guilt is about something that you have already done. Now that could be the action, that could be the thought that you picked up, the certain emotions that you felt about certain people, but it is about your choice that you have already made. So when you talk about guilt, it's about something that, like the arrow which has already left the bow. So it's not something that you're doing or you can alter right now. It has already happened. So we have very little chance, a little possibility to change things because it has already happened, right? So that's one aspect about guilt that we have to keep in mind. Now there is one other area which comes with guilt, but that we do not pay attention to, is shame. Now there is a difference. I'm not playing with words. I'm just bringing your attention to different levels of emotions. When we are kids, we say, I feel good or I feel bad. I feel happy or I feel sad. When we start growing up, we start learning the differentiation between multiple layers, between happy and sad, between good and bad. So we literally start layering and specifically start talking about certain areas, certain emotions. So if you have watched that movie, the Disney movie which is all about emotions, I can't remember the name, but if you guys know what I'm talking about, there's this girl growing up and she has only 10 emotions like anger and happiness, and as she becomes a teenager, her emotions starts coloring up. I think the name will come to me. So when we talk about now I'm stuck on the name. Okay. So when we talk about this whole idea of Inside Out. Thank you so much. Inside Out is the name of the movie. It's an animation movie, very cute, where somebody talks about, the whole movie is about how your singular emotions start becoming complex. We have so many Inside Out fans. Thank you so much, guys. Now, when we look at our emotions, that's exactly what happens. We start labeling things from happy and sad, good and bad, to the nuances that we can pick up, to the specific emotions. So when we start differentiating between exactly what we are feeling, it becomes easier for us to deal with our emotions and go around them. For example, if you have infection which is showing on your skin, and if you're only treating your skin, it might not go. But if you understand, probably I need to change something in my diet, or there's some other reaction and this is just an outcome of it, it becomes easier for you to deal with the problem, right? Now this is what we bring in. Now if you identify the problem correctly, you can actually solve it. So when it comes to guilt, the dialogue that you have with yourself is slightly different than the dialogue that you have when you are in shame. And we talk about guilt because we are more aware of this emotion, but shame is the bigger culprit. And we're going to talk about this, okay? What guilt does, it tells you that what you did was absolutely wrong, not acceptable, immoral. But shame starts putting you as the person who's the culprit behind it. So shame would tell you things like, you are this horrible person who did this. Okay, so I want you guys to really look at the thing that you're feeling guilty about and just observe the self-dialogue that you have underneath. When the self-dialogue is about, how could I do this? This is unacceptable. This I shouldn't have done. Then it's about you trying to figure it out or solve this problem. But it's about the behavior which you still can alter. But the very moment you become this immoral person, you become an idiot, you become the horrible person, then that becomes a final verdict. Now, if you know, my work in graphology is all about behavioral study, right? So I'm fascinated about how people form their specific behaviors. What exactly changes? Why two kids growing up in one house receiving similar kind of treatment and upbringing and value system turn out to be these two completely different human beings? Why their belief systems do not coincide most of the time? And when you start observing that, it's about how people process that information, how they take that experience, and how the decoding happens. So in your decoding, the inner dialogue, that internal conversation is an essential part. And if we start paying attention to why we say the way we say things to ourselves, you'll realize that there is so much one can alter. Now you say, yeah, but so many times you'll end up saying things because you're used to it. So that's my habit, Aditi. I don't do it consciously. Completely taken. You don't do it consciously, but that doesn't mean if you don't put your hand consciously in front of the fire on top of your gas stove, it won't burn. It will burn because it will have the same reaction. So you might as well start changing things that are not serving you. Okay, so when you are guilty, you most of the time think, oh shit, I shouldn't have done this. But when you are stuck in the shame aspect of it, then it's all about how horrible you are as a mother, how such a failure you are as a father, or how could you not do this when it came to being an employee or a professional. So it's about literally labeling yourself. So I want you to see those strong judgments or labels that you have about yourself, and where do you feel that shame. If we can deal with the shame, then guilt can be taken care of. So this is the approach Brené Brown brought up, and she said, can we differentiate between these two emotions? And I thought that, and I've used it with so many of my clients, and it works every time beautifully. But the problem is we do not look at our emotions in an objective manner. We kind of make them like, oh, I'm feeling depressed is what people say so many times. We do not take out time to understand what is happening. And that's why we bring in the aspect of journaling. Other people, other professionals can help you to a great degree, but the way you can help yourself is phenomenal. Like, it is unbelievable to see the amount of efforts you can put in to understand your own journeys and make the alterations. Again, I'm repeating this point. This is my fundamental belief that you are in the driving seat of your life. Other people can give you directions, they can give you, they can give you water because you're driving for longer hours, they can make sure that your journey is comfortable, but you are in the driving seat. The day you turn against yourself, nobody can stop you from meeting with an accident. But the day you decide that I'm going to make changes and change the way I look at the situations, then things become different. So first and foremost idea when we talk about guilt is that sense of a realization for all of us to understand that whatever you're feeling guilty about is already done. Okay? Whatever you're feeling guilty about, and I know it could be like the most horrible thing that we are referring to, and I know people are feeling guilty right now because they feel they could have done a little bit better to save the people that they care for or to avoid the damage, and that guilt is really, really tough. But the point is, first point of realization is whatever you're feeling guilty about, it's done. The arrow has left. The bullet has left. So the very moment you sit yourself down and begin from this space that it is done, I have a choice to sit here and put myself into this helpless position, or I have a choice to make some shift in the way I'm feeling right now, and only you can do it. No one else can do it, right? We can give you tools, methods, all of that, but you have to sit there and say, okay, at this point in time, if I feel guilty about it, first thing is it's done. Does that make sense to you guys? If that is the biggest point that you begin from, then you understand that my finger is already cut, it is bleeding, but if I sit there and say, I shouldn't have picked up that knife, I shouldn't have gone into the kitchen, I should have been somewhere else. If you constantly keep coming up with all other things that you should have done, then your finger will keep bleeding. The very moment you realize that, oh my God, the cut has happened and I got to work on it, you are in more solution oriented space. And this is what we want. We want you to step into the solution oriented space and look at things that you can do and not things that you should have or could have or would have done. So the very moment you say, okay, fine, it is done, what can I do about it? So when I'm going to talk about today's journaling question, this is what I'm going to step into and talk about how we can differentiate and deal with things. But I want you to walk with me on this process. So first thing first, the realization, the awareness that it has happened. The second thing is realizing that there are things which are in your control that you can change right now, and then there are things which are not in your control that you cannot change right now. Okay, so this is where the journaling question comes for the day. When I look at things that I feel guilty about, what can I change about it, and what I have to accept as an unchangeable area? Okay, so when I think of things that I feel guilty about, which part of this guilt, or which part of this whole emotional baggage that I'm carrying around I can change, and what part I have to accept as unchangeable truth or unchangeable reality. So going back to the finger example, the fact that I can put medicine and reduce the damage, I can deal with it. But if I go back and say I shouldn't have, or this cut shouldn't have happened, then we absolutely cannot do anything about it, right? Now this is the differentiation, and we have to start breaking it down. So first thing, accepting that this has happened. Second thing is where you start looking at what do I require to accept and what I can change. So that is where you say, okay, I can change the way I now speak with my mother. I can change the way I process my finances now, because last time I was blind about what I was doing and I lost money. Whatever is your concern, you can now make changes. Now the third aspect is looking at your self-dialogue. If you sit there and say, I am such a stupid person, I am such a horrible person, how could I do this, I am always messed up. Now, if you have all of these going on in your mind all the time, then that self-dialogue is bought by the person who is listening to it. If you say, okay, wait a minute, okay, this has happened and I did it, okay, it happened I did it, okay, I take responsibility for it, but it was my choice. Like if you think about, like for example, I should have done more research about this COVID thing, and I should have kept my resources ready, and how stupid of me that I didn't do it. Now, if you say, okay, what I could have done, you still have the space of doing it the next time. The very moment you label yourself as a careless, stupid, whatever labels that you have, as those labels in your mind, then next time you operate from those labels. And then when people call you out on the same labels, you feel so offended. But how about you? You have been saying all these nasty things to yourself all the time, and who is accountable for that? If you are, then we definitely have to change the way we speak with ourselves, and that won't happen overnight. This is where we require awareness. In every single conversation, when you're referring to yourself, a part of you, in Yoga Sutra, it is called Chitta. Chitta is constantly observing every action and almost recording every action. So all the information that you feed here, and all the information that you talk about, and all the emotions that you feel, knowingly, unknowingly, the Chitta is recording. And for me, the very moment I looked at it as a thought, first time when I read the Sanskrit scriptures, and I was looking at that whole idea of Chitta, I'm like, oh, that's like a camera recording all the things that are happening. So it's not always about performing to the gallery, but it's about genuinely dealing with the problem so that I do not behave in that manner. So it's not like not calling myself stupid in public, or in front of my kids, or not behaving in a certain manner because I want to become this so-called role model. But the very moment my evaluation is about how I speak with myself, then I have to pay attention to everything that I think. And you're like, oh my God, I already have all these horrible thoughts and all these negative thoughts. How do I go about it? A step at a time, a stroke at a time, a thought at a time. And that's how we're going to break this. It looks complicated because it is convoluted. There are so many things that are happening around and within. That's why it looks complicated. But if we start breaking it down, and if we take one thing at a time, one brick at a time, we will build a different wall. Okay, but if you try to look at, like, if you expect yourself to break the whole wall right now, it's not going to happen. And that's what, and mental work is such. So many times after talking about these things for over 17 years, I catch myself falling into certain traps and feeling guilty and having shame. And I'm like, okay, probably I'm walking on that loop. It takes time, it takes journaling, it takes observation, it takes awareness. But that's the journey, that's the game, right? Like any other master, singer, player, any high performer you pick up, when they function from their utmost quality of work, they're constantly trying to fine tune it. It's not that, oh my God, that rag was beautiful, I sung it once and it's gone. It's never the case, right? Every time you sing the same rag, every time you perform in front of your audience, you're constantly working at making it better or finding your finer nuances. Same thing with emotions. Like, let's start thinking like an artist or a performer when it comes to dealing with our own inner dialogue. Right? So if you refine it, if you do not have the thoughts of shame, which are completely bogging you down, we'll be able to move forward much faster. Okay? On that note, I'm going to move to journaling. I want you to take a ruled paper and a ballpoint pen. We're going to do the S-stroke practice. I have knocked enough doors when it comes to guilt and dealing with all the shame. I've just knocked these doors, right? Now you're like, but Aditi, where is the solution of this problem? How do I exactly fix this problem? What do I do that otherwise I am not aware of? And all of these emotions, if they're going crazy, I want you to pause and look at this as your process. I want you to move through this journey. So journaling is a 3-step process. First begins with you asking this solution-oriented question, the way I am asking you right now, but you can repeat that question to yourself. Second point is where you start doing the flow of thoughts or the Kama Sutra or the S-stroke practice. When you do this practice, you involve your body with the help of your breath and through your actual journaling of your physical movement of the writing. And once you're done with that entire page, you move to stage 3, where you set a timer for 15 minutes and you start writing everything that comes to your mind. Now with guilt, we might open floodgates, and I'm aware of it. So if that happens, if you suddenly have this emotional outburst that is happening on the paper, stick to 15 minutes, okay? Otherwise you may just get carried away in all these emotions. We just want 15 minutes as a window, and go in and say everything that you want to. And then you will realize that catharsis, that option of expressing your own emotions in a particular manner may become your source of getting some peace with that whole idea. Okay? So give me a moment, I'm going to switch the camera and let's get to this process. So here we go. And we can reduce the height of it. Perfect. So let's look at the stroke today. Before you start doing the stroke, I want you to breathe slightly longer than your normal breath. Those who are on YouTube, people who are on Facebook, just learn the stroke. The link is aditisurana.com/lockdown21. You'll realize how to go about this stroke formation, but just bear with us. We're going to do the stroke and come back to the conversation. Okay, so let's look at the flow that you experience when you do the stroke. There are only 5 steps to follow, and the fifth one is the breathing one. Other four are about the formation of the stroke. So as I start the stroke, make sure that you're all set already. If you're new here, if you're doing this for the first time, do not get hassled about it. Just follow the stroke for right now, but learn the stroke carefully. So we begin with the actual formation. Wow. Newer concern. One moment. Okay. When you do this formation, just make sure that you're breathing slightly longer than normal. As you could see that my loop here of the S stroke is squeezed. This is incorrect. We want to make sure all the loops are open. And wherever your hand stops, you will start the whole process one more time. Breathe slightly longer than normal when you do the stroke. Today somebody asked that when I do this practice, after the practice I feel my thoughts are all over the place. Why is it happening? Now, the flow of thoughts is about creating a flow. That's the name of this practice. So it's about creating a flow. Now when the flow is created, everything that is stuck starts flowing out. Now we do not know what is stuck within, but keeping it stuck is not a good idea. Giving it a flow, giving it a movement, letting it absolutely come out could be of great help. And I feel every single person required to resume their flow. But so many times we do not know how to function with flow. Like, it's nice to enjoy the speed and the momentum and the flow. It's a good thought to begin with. But so many times we do not know how to deal with it, what to do with that whole momentum if that is given to us. And this is where the flow can become overwhelming. So my request to anybody who feel now their thoughts are too smooth, because I've been doing the practice for a very long time, implement these thoughts or these flow ideas or this newfound capacity in work. So intensify what you're doing and you'll realize that suddenly you find your own rhythm here. I'm just going to quickly show this practice to people who are on YouTube and Facebook. Breathe slightly deeper than your normal breath. In your uncontrollable mind, one of the thoughts will be to get your attention on the stroke formation, and the thought would be to get your attention on your breath. With that thought, just resume the stroke formation. Be as involved as possible with this process. So no music, no TV, like the TV can be in the background, but you do not engage with it. Only the aggressive crows are allowed while doing the practice. I'm going to stop here and get to our conversation one more time. So the whole idea of this practice is where you enjoy each stroke or be committed to each stroke. My quickest example, closest example is Japanese tea making process, where you actually allow the tea making process to become your ritual. So you're that committed, you're that involved, and that gives you the connection. Now here you don't have to believe in it, you don't have to trust the process, none of it. All you got to do is turn it around and literally do what is required in your physical experience. So lead by your body when your mind is useless. You remember that statement? So we're going to do that. We're going to lead through our body because our minds are right now uncontrollable, going all over the place, and other way around. Okay, give me a moment to switch the camera and we will start our conversation one more time.